Hello guys, Alexander Supertramp here, and welcome to my channel. In the past, whenever a decomposed or skeletal remains are found hidden or buried in the woods or a deserted area and they have no identification, specialized forensic experts and others are brought in to create what the person would have looked like when alive. The final results are illustrated or sculpted clay renderings of what the deceased looked like as a living human being. They are then submitted to the public to help identify the person. Hopefully they are quickly identified by the seemingly accurate renderings and brought back to their loved ones. But sometimes it may take years and decades until they are provenly identified through DNA analysis. On this video, I'm going to first show you drawings or sculpted composites of 4 unidentified murder victims whose remains were either found badly decomposed or skeletal. And then I'm going to show you actual photos and the real names of the same people when they were later identified through DNA and other means. So here we go. Victim number 1. She was known as Rainbow Falls Jane Doe. Her partially clad body was found by a hiker at a makeshift camp at Rainbow Falls campsite in Pike San Isabel National Forest near Colorado Springs, Colorado, on June 15, 1993. She was beaten to death and possibly dumped there. She was only wearing a Harley Davidson t-shirt and some unique jewelry. Forensic experts believe she was between 13 to 20 years old, with light brown or blonde hair and around 5'8" and 140 pounds. There was no signs of heavy drug use or sexual assault in her, and her body was 3 days decomposed when found, and facial reconstruction was necessary to determine what she looked like alive. Her composites were sent to the public, but no one identified her for 27 years. Finally, in August 2020, through DNA analysis, she was identified as Rebecca Becky Ann Rediker from Colorado Springs, and this is what she actually looked like. Becky disappeared under unknown circumstances sometime between 1992 and 1993. It is known that she was homeless at the time of her disappearance and spent most of her life around Colorado Springs. She may have been with a group of bikers because there was a biker convention near the time of her murder, plus she was wearing a black biker shirt. Now that she got her name back and returned to her family, we must find the killer or killers that did this to her. If you have any information regarding her murder, please call the Douglas County Sheriff's Office at 303-660-7588 or 7500. Victim number 2, Septic Tank Sam, Alberta, Canada. On April 13, 1977, a local farmer searching an abandoned septic tank to retrieve a pump discovered the victim's decomposing remains. The victim had been rolled up in a yellow bed sheet, tied with nylon rope, and thrown headfirst into the septic tank. An autopsy revealed that he had been shot several times, burned with a blowtorch and cigarettes, beaten and sexually mutilated. His body was then covered in limestone. Police suspect the killer was familiar with this area given the rural location of the abandoned and derelict property. Based upon the victim's clothing, it is suspected that he was a farm laborer or a construction worker and was likely not from Alberta. He was nicknamed Septic Tank Sam by investigators and laid to rest in an unmarked pauper's grave in an Edmonton cemetery. And for 44 years, his identity remained unknown. But on June 29, 2021, Septic Tank Sam had finally been identified with the help of genetic genealogy performed by Othram Incorporated. After 44 years, we finally have a name, Septic Tank Sam was identified to be Gordon Edwin Sanderson, a 26-year-old indigenous man from Manitoba who had been living in Edmonton, and this is what he actually looked like. He was known as Gordy to his family and friends. Gordy had a hard life. He was separated from his family at 9 years old during the 60s and placed in foster care. He was involved in criminal acts that may have resulted of him being murdered. Many speculated that Gordy had been sexually mutilated due to being a pedophile and a rapist or being unfaithful in a relationship. Sanderson was last known by his family to be on his way to visit his younger brother Arthur in Calgary, Alberta, and that he had been murdered by someone who knew him along the way. We may never know why he was tortured and murdered, and his killers may never be found or identified. A deep investigation to his criminal past and acquaintances may shed some clues to who his killers are. As for now, his murder remains unsolved. Victim number 3. She was previously known as Precious Jane Doe, whose murder has been solved and her killer caught, imprisoned, and released, but her identity remained unknown for 43 years. On August 14, 1977, a couple out picking blackberries found a girl face down 5 days after she was murdered. Her body decaying in a heat, her limbs were black, and her face had decomposed. She was unrecognizable. August 9, 1977, Everett, Washington. A young man named David Roth was driving to a lake for a swim. Noticed a tall, attractive girl hitchhiking on a road by Silver Lake. She was about 5'10" and slender, wearing cut-off jeans and a low-cut sleeveless shirt. Not bad looking, Roth thought. Sliding to his Chevy, she said she was on her way home. She told him she lived with 2 guys in a trailer just south of the lake. It was late in the afternoon, around 4 or 5 p.m., but when he asked if she wanted a beer, she agreed. So he bought a case of Bud Light at a nearby store and he drove to a wooded area just north of his old high school. After a few drinks, he wondered if the girl would take off her shirt. She stripped down to her shorts and he grew excited as she let him touch her. But the feeling darkened when she refused to have sex with him. Angry after being rejected, Roth calmly asked the girl if she wanted to see some peacock feathers, and went to the trunk of his car and took a handful of feathers and a bungee cord. Then he walked around to her side of the car, handed her the feathers, and wrapped the cord around her neck. He pulled until he thought she was dead. But when he dragged the girl into some brush, her body started to jerk. Ross took a rifle from the car and shot her in the head. 2 years later, David Roth confessed to the murder, but couldn't answer all of the detective's questions. He told them he didn't know the girl's name. 43 years later, after she was found on June 2020, she was finally identified as Elizabeth Lisa Roberts from Roseburg, Oregon. And this is what she looked like. Her case is one of the first ones solved by extracting DNA from rootless hair and was solved using forensic genealogy. Lisa was reported as a runaway by her father to the Rosenberg Police Department on July 25, 1977. A few weeks after she ran away, she called home from Everett, Washington, and asked her parents for money. At the time, they asked her to come home, and she said she would think about it. Eventually, they sent the money to a bank in Everett, but the money was never picked up. It is believed Lisa was murdered on August 9, 1977, and her body was discovered 5 days later. She was only 17 years old when she was murdered. Her killer served 26 years in prison and was released in 2005 for good behavior. He died of cancer in 2015. This case has since been closed. Victim number 4. He was known as the Barren County Jane Doe, and it took 37 years to get his identity back, but his murder is still a mystery to this day. Loggers in Wisconsin found his remains in the woods in private land in Richland, Barren County, Wisconsin, back in September 21st, 1982. At first they thought it was a pile of clothing in the woods, so one of the loggers picked it up and found a skeleton inside. Then about 3 feet away from the skeleton lay the skull and lower jaw. On autopsy, he concluded that the deceased was a white male between 18 and 22 years old with brown hair and a stocky build. The cause of death was 3 stab wounds in his chest, and he was so deep that it left cut marks on his vertebra. He was murdered by unknown assailants, and the murderers may have killed him elsewhere and dumped his body there, or he was led to that area and killed. The time of death was estimated to most likely be April or May 1982. This murder has baffled Wisconsin police for decades. No one knew who he was and what happened to him. Finally, on January 2020, thanks to the DNA Doe project, the Barren County Doe's identity has been revealed. His real name is Craig Patrick King from White Bear Lake, Minnesota. He was aged 20 or 21, and this is what he actually looked like. It's a pretty close resemblance to the 3D reconstruction of what he looked like alive. Well, according to his family, Craig graduated from White Bear Lake High School in 1979. He was a great student, played sports, and was well liked by everyone who knew him. He also suffered from mental illness, and this might have contributed to his death. Nobody knows how he got to the place where he was found, which is more than 70 miles west from his hometown. He had no car and was carrying more than $2 grand of cash with him when he was last seen in early 1982. And no cash or identification was with him when he was found. Did he get a ride or took a bus and was robbed and murdered along the way? He surely trusted the wrong people. His family needs answers and justice for Craig. The Barren County Sheriff's Department is seeking the public's help as the investigation of King's homicide continues. Anyone with information on why the victim would have been in Barren County in 1982 or any knowledge of this case should contact the Barren County Sheriff's Department at 715-537-3106. And this concludes this segment of this video. Hope you enjoy it. It took me a long time to do it, so thank you, and I'll see you soon.